Julie, over to you.
This meeting is being recorded. Are we ready?
Yep.
Good morning or good afternoon or good evening, everyone. Welcome today. Thank you for joining in our latest in our webinar series. The topic of today's webinar is digitizing education. Again, this is part of a series of educational webinars sponsored by Skillman and IVETA in partnership. This morning, we encourage you to keep your microphone muted and your camera switched off so we can conserve our bandwidth here. But feel free to send any questions or comments in the Q&A box, and we will answer them at the end of this session. So thank you very much. And now we'll get started with the introductions. My name is Dr. Julie Bovey, and actually I switched jobs since this slide was made. I'm now still an academic vice president, but I'm at Arkansas Tech University. So I've moved from the northern part of the United States to the southern part of the United States, where it is much warmer. And I will be your host this morning. I am an IVETA member and have been helping to organize this series of webinars. Next slide. We have three speakers for you this morning. The first one is Ana Maria Alvita, and she is from ITS Vita, and she will be explaining a little bit more about who she is and what her organization does in just a few minutes. She'll be our first speaker this morning. Our second speaker is João Carlos Acosta, and he is from ATEC, and he will be, again, explaining a little bit about himself and what his organization does relative to digitizing education. Our third speaker is Roberta Fantinato, and she is from the School of Europe of Parma. She's coming to us from Italy this morning. João is coming to us from Portugal. We have an international, very international panel this morning. Last but not least, we have Julian Eng. He is our president-elect for IVETA, and he will be making some closing comments. So with that, we will get started. Each presenter will have about 10 minutes to present, and that will allow us some time for questions and answers at the end of the session. So please go ahead, Ana Maria.
Thank you, Julie. And first of all, thanks to Skillman for this invitation. I'm Ana Maria Oliva, and I work as project coordinator for the IVETA TS Foundation. A question: do I share slides from my computer? Okay, perfect. Thank you. Okay, please, next slide. Okay, today I'm here to tell about the changes that our foundation has adopted in recent years, changes related to the educational methodologies, a change that has been certainly speeded up and induced by the global COVID pandemic. The IVETA TS Foundation is a Niger Technological Institute. Our scope is to train students in the life science sector. Our foundation is composed by 21 members, but I think that there is a mistake in the slides. My slide is not this. I have sent okay, perfect. Thank you very much. 21 members. Among them, there are 3 Tuscan universities, and also there are some of the most important national and global pharmaceutical companies. Yeah. In this picture, you have the opportunity to see some of the companies with which we collaborate in our activities. Next slide, please. Okay, the COVID pandemic has certainly impacted the education and the training system around the world, causing important changes in the way we learn, we touch, we communicate and collaborate with others. Our challenge during the pandemic situation was to respond as quickly as possible to the change in order to avoid a suspension of the educational activities. When the government has announced the state of emergency, first of all, we have put on some digital platform for the remote learning, and we have also defined a new system for the tracking of students' attendance. We have also provided a company laptop for all students that don't have it, in order to ensure easy training from their rooms. Then we have also organized guided tours within companies with which we collaborate. In order to preserve the practical aspect of our courses, we have also put on more than 20 lab simulations on the Labster platform. In this way, our students from their homes in a safe and fast way have the opportunity to access inside a lab, entering in a safe and risk-free virtual environment, unlike a real lab. And the most important investment that our foundation has made in recent years have been the augmented and the virtual reality headset in order to create a more engaging learning experience. Next slide, please. Thank you. In addition to the classroom lessons, we have also organized individual orientation paths in order to highlight in the CV of our students the best skills and abilities. And also, we have organized on some digital platforms online interviews with companies for the activation of an internship agreement. Next slide. Yeah, thank you. But I think that the most important investment that our foundation has made has been the IVETA Lab project. IVETA Lab is an educational lab. In this lab, you can find some innovative tools, such as the augmented reality and virtual reality headset, 3D scanner, and printer. And also you can find high-tech gloves that can return a virtual tactile sensation. For example, if you are in this lab and you are wearing a virtual reality headset and you simulate to take a test tube from a cold room, wearing these gloves, you have the opportunity to feel a cold sensation. These tools are able to induce the learning by doing process, and I think that this represents the added value of this project. Next slide, please. Thank you. Okay. So the COVID pandemic was certainly a difficult and challenging period for everyone. But from my point of view, I think that this situation has taught us something. When our lives were confined within the walls of our homes, digital tools have been strategic for our lives. During the pandemic period, we have experimented new ways to learn, to teach, to communicate, new ways of doing, and new ways that I think are perhaps closer to the current generations. As a foundation, as an educational foundation, we have discovered new ways to learn, having fun, and new ways to learn with an emotional environment, such as when you learn with a virtual reality headset. So now we can say now that the pandemic seems to have given us a breathing moment, we can say that our goals for the future are two: experimenting with new approaches to training that stimulate curiosity, and anticipating changes is a continuous challenge for successful training. Okay, I have finished. Thank you for the attention.
Thank you very much, Henri. That was a very interesting presentation and certainly helped us see how digital technologies can be applied to instruction and learning. Next, we have João and his presentation. So, welcome.
So, sorry, I was just looking to unmute the microphone. So, first of all, thank you very much for the invitation from IVETA from Skillman to share with you some of our experiences, not only during the pandemic, but also, and we speak sometimes about the virus and the long-term effects that could have also in our health. Today I will try to speak a little bit about also the side effects that in the vocational and educational training system we could have from this experience of these 2 years. So first of all, I will share with you, and so if you can change the slide for the first one, so to make you a short presentation about what is ATEC. So we are a training academy here located in Portugal. We are a non-profitable organization, and we have as major partners Volkswagen, Siemens, Bosch, and the Portuguese-German Chamber of Commerce and Industry here in Portugal. Our training is done in cooperation and with a cooperation agreement with the Portuguese Institute for Employment and Professional Training. And we are providing training in automation, electronics and energy, car mechatronics, industrial mechatronics, and also information technology. So we have around about 1,400 students every day in our facilities, in 2 main facilities, one here very close to Lisbon. I don't know if some of you that are present here during the last one event that was held here in Lisbon last year, some of you probably had the opportunity to visit us, and other facility, it's located in Oporto, so in the north of the country. Now, going for the first slide of the presentation. So I just have 3-4 slides. So the first slide was before the pandemic. So until 2019, in fact, until the 13th of March of 2020, when we were, all of us, at least here in Portugal, it was the date, I think it's one of the dates we will never forget for the rest of our lives, we were all sent back home without knowing what will be, how we will be working in the next Monday. So before the pandemic, we had already some, can you go back 2 slides, please? You are in slide 3, back. Yeah, that's it, 2019, please. I was the previous one. Okay, but before the pandemic, we were running already some pilots. The next one, and that's it, perfect. So now we are aligned. So before the pandemic, we were already running some pilot projects using Microsoft Teams. So we had some training courses where we had already a curriculum structure. We were working on the contents and the pedagogical methods and the evaluation process using, in this case, Microsoft Teams. And we were using it as a collaboration tool already. So meaning that when we were in the situation of having to be at home, for us, it was not completely a new situation. Of course, that was not affecting all these projects were not affecting the complete structure, but some of us, and especially in the professional training, there was already some experience. We were also running some projects regarding pedagogical methods, namely with active learning methods, for instance, flipped classrooms, project-based learning projects. But the mindset at that time in 2019 was still, the majority of the mindset was, oh, this is not possible. Probably the trainers are not prepared for these digital training tools. The trainees, they are too young, they are not mature enough to have this type of training and type of organization. We don't have the required tools, we need to have specific softwares or whatever. In fact, and when we went to 2020, in the next slide, we were faced that all these mindsets, I mean, you can go for the next one, please. That's right, perfect. And we were faced with the situation that it's not a question of being or not being possible. The question was, as to be possible. There is no other alternative. If you want to still be in the business, you have to find an alternative. And the digital solution that we found, that was a 100% distant training during lockdowns. I can tell you that we were doing that 2 weeks after the first lockdown. We were already prepared to start 100% of training, distance training. The mindset was changing almost from one day to the other. And before, the people that were saying that was not possible, first of all, we had to put in the mindset of the people, it's not a question of being or not being possible, as to be possible. And a few weeks after, people that 1 month before were saying, no, it's not working. They were saying, okay, it's working. It's not perfect, of course. It's not perfect solution, but it's working. And the trainees are really available to do this in this way, and they are prepared. So a lot of the obstacles that we were facing and during before 2020, they were disappearing. The hybrid model was also in a certain period was done. So with face-to-face training plus distance learning. Of course, we had restrictions, number of people, of trainees that we could have in the facilities and so on. But we were working like this for almost 2 years. And even today, where the pandemic is really in a lower rate, we still have some cases where we have still to use the hybrid model. The trainers were really adapting to the new method. Of course, it was required to provide them some specific training. We ran more than 36 workshops explaining them how to use Microsoft Teams, how to use Microsoft tools, giving them pedagogical tools so that they could keep the attention of the trainees while in a distance on a remote training. But it was really possible to do it, and even more with a lower resistance than before. The question, and I think Anna already mentioned that it was important during that period that everybody had to have access. So we had to distribute around about 200 computers to some of our students that didn't have equipment at home. And the question at that time was not a question of having equipment. Sometimes the family had one equipment, but the parents were working at home. There was some brothers or sisters also needing to have access to the classes at home. So the question was, not all the families had 3 or 4 computers at home. So we provide computers to all our trainees that requested, so around about 20, and also internet access. So we gave them the possibility. During this period, I would say that the key words for this period was in the beginning a top-down process. So from the management, that even before there was a little bit of resistance. There was an involvement, and it was really a top-down process. We had to solve problems almost every day. I can tell you, normally we have one meeting per week with the management team. We had a management team every day to solve the problems for the first month, and we were able to solve the problems. We improved, this is something that could be strange, that we were at a distance, but in communication improved, because we were a click distance from speaking with colleagues, to solve problems, to organize a meeting. So we're not depending if someone was in the coffee shop or was whatever. It was very easy, and in the first periods, the collaboration and the communication improved. We were, for the 2 months, is probably in survival mode, to be honest. It's not everything pink, but it was sometimes difficult. And the other focus that you mentioned before, and I already mentioned before, we also had a big focus in safety. So security, system security and cybersecurity. But now we have to use this momentum that was created from these 2 years, and we have to plan the things for the future. And the future is starting already started the future. So we are in the future, let's say. So we are at the moment having an hybrid training programs. There is a trainer's openness for new ways of teaching, both using digital tools, but also in terms of pedagogical and active learning methodologies. We are providing the trainees, the trainers, possibility of continuous improvement. So we are promoting almost every month a webinar with a specific topic so that they still are developing themselves. We are redesigning all our training structure. So one of the things we did already this year was to hire an instructional designer that is in our organization to make a complete redesign of how we are developing our training for the future. And in 2 years, or probably already next year, we will then introduce a learning management system. So I know that in some institutions or some organizations, first we have the learning management system, and then we are reorganized according to the learning management system. We decide to do the opposite. So first of all, we are reorganizing all our structures from the pedagogical side, from the evaluation side, from the content side. And then we are in a position then to choose, and we already have some ideas, the best learning management system that is adapting to this structure. So it's the opposite. We don't have to adapt our structures to the learning management systems that we adopt. We are the ones defining what we have to do. Again, from 2025, we have already plans so that all trainees have a device with this distance, knowing if it is a laptop, if it is a tablet, whatever. It's the most suitable device at that moment. And the mindset at this moment is that if it's possible to do it, it's a flexibility tool both for trainers and trainees. So sometimes trainers and trainees, they can arrange, okay, it's better for us to have an online session and they do it an online session. In Portugal, I don't know in other countries, but we are facing a lack of specialized and technical trainers. And this is opening the possibility of recruiting in other regions of the country or even in other regions of the world. So if we are on an hybrid model, I can have a trainer in Madrid or whatever, giving, of course, in Portuguese training to trainees that are here from Portugal. We also could, and we already are optimizing some costs. And also this is allowing us, being on the digital solution, to standardize better the training methods. And this is something that regarding the keywords for the future is really, we have a strategy, a clear strategy. During the pandemic, especially in the beginning, the strategy was surviving, let's be honest. And I think if someone is saying the opposite, I think maybe someone was already prepared for it. We were not. It's still a top-down process for the moment. We are standardizing our processes, not only the training process, but all the support processes. Again, the collaboration, and when I speak about collaboration, is not collaboration only between the staff members and the teachers also, but also regarding trainees and all the organizations. So we could have a really collaborative environment of working. And also with the introduction of the learning management system and with the redesign of the training structure, really our focus is to have a system that is focused on the trainee. And this is basically a part of the next slide, which is our strategy. So we have a long-term strategy for 2034. And our goal in ATEC is to be a more digital organization, a more attractive organization, but also a more sustainable organization by changing our training offer to have training offer that are more attractive both for our trainees, but also in line with the needs of the companies. We are digitizing our training processes and also our support processes. We also need to have sustainability, to improve our responsibility regarding environmental and financial sustainability. So in fact, this program and the fact that we had the pandemics, this was one of the side effects that people start to believe, and they are convinced at the moment that the change is possible. We could do it very fast in 2020. Now we don't need to do it so fast, but also we need to change to adapt to a new world with a lot of technological innovation, with a lot of different pressures that we have from from our society. I can speak about demographic or economic or whatever. And so we have proven that we are able to adapt ourselves. And I think that's for the moment all.
Okay, thank you very much for that interesting look at how EdTech has evolved both with the technology and with the mindset over the past 3 years. Our final speaker today is Roberta, and so again, take it away.
Good afternoon, and thank you for the invitation. I've been a teacher in Italian school for 10 years, and from September, I'm the director of the School for Europe of Parma, which is an accredited European school linked to EFSA, the European Food Safety Authority. We have got 800 students from nursery to baccalaureate, and 3 different language sections, Italian, French, and English. I start with some consideration which are, in my opinion, very important to talk about this theme. First of all, I think that the change is inevitable. I know that we humans do not like change so much, but Edgar Morin, who is a very important French philosopher, talks about the word after, and many other people talk of a new normal. And I think that we have got to imagine and to understand that we are living in a new normal, and that we have got to build something different also in school. Change could be, and in my opinion, is an important opportunity for our growth and for the growth of our students. It's very difficult in school to make people understand that change is an opportunity, because humans see change as a threat, but I think that we have got to work on this. And then we have in school, we try to make change an opportunity for everyone, because we cannot leave someone behind. And this happened especially in the first month of pandemic, because many students had problems and couldn't follow the lesson and couldn't leave the school. How we can face the digital revolution in school? I think that we have got to change our mindset about school and try to understand where we are going and what new idea of school we want to develop. In my opinion, we have got to think that the school should be an agency for change. And we have to understand that the educational vision is different, and that our students should learn how to learn, should be creative, should learn in a cooperative way, and should develop also the social emotional skills, which are very, very important. And for example, in Italian school, it's very difficult to work on these skills because teachers are not prepared to work in this way. In this different school, we have got to understand what is the role of technology. Technology is an important tool in the teaching and learning processes, but it's not the purpose. Because if we think that technology is the purpose, school loses its importance. After the pandemic, during the pandemic, we understood that digital technologies should be integrated in the school in 3 important dimensions of the school: pedagogical, technological, and in organization. Because if these technologies are not integrated, they are useless, because we use technology also before pandemic, but now we learned how to use them in an integrated way. If you can go on, okay, the other one. I think that what is very important is that schools understood the importance of a digital ecosystem. in schools, we have got to create a coherent digital ecosystem, because in this way, administration, teaching, and communication flows, dialogue and communicate each other. If we have a good digital ecosystem, which is quite difficult because, especially in Italian schools, technology really facilitates. It facilitates the management, the organization, the communication, and then student and teacher can communicate very, very easily inside classroom, outside classroom, and we can build inclusive learning environments. But we have to have a digital ecosystem very coherent, which is a long process, because it's not so easy to create an ecosystem which is useful and well done and well organized. And then we've got to think that digitalizing education involves a new planning of lesson, of teacher activities, a new curriculum. I think that we have got to start thinking about a curriculum beyond the disciplines, which is very different, very difficult, for example, in my country, because we have a different tradition in schools and university, and also evaluation changes. I think that after pandemic, we have got to start thinking what experience are the better for the student, which are the experience that promote better learning outcomes. Because, for example, we have in Valsi, which is every Italian school, and we learned that our students cannot understand what they read, and that they have got more and more difficulties after the pandemic. So probably we have got to change our way of teaching, because what happened didn't help them to learn in a deep way. What about the teacher? The teacher during the pandemic understood that they have to change their role. They do not only deliver information, explain, demonstrate, but they've got to guide. They are the director of the learning, and they've got to be a caring. I thought that we've got to talk of a caring teacher in a digital world, because what happens between students and teacher is always the heart of the school. But we have got to think about our pupils, because technologies have a very strong impact on how our children learn. And neuroscience shows us that pupils learn and interact in a completely different way. In this period, we observe our pupils, they are very different. They can concentrate less. They have very strong reaction. They cannot cooperate. So probably something is changing, and we've got to know what neuroscience shows about it. And in our country, we tried to work a lot on training, on continuous training for everyone, because otherwise, because we wanted to prevent a return to the habits of the past, which is the simpler way. And we had a lot of distant training, of cooperative training between teachers, between different schools, in order to try to go on and not to go back. I don't know if we can talk of digital evolution or revolution. I don't think that pandemic caused a revolution in school. I think that there is an evolution, that education is changing, but it's a very slow process, especially because huge bureaucracies change very, very slowly. And it's very hard for huge bureaucracies to change. They prefer to go back. It's easier. The case of the European school, and then I stop, is very different, because European schools tried to talk and to organize the digital education before pandemic, and European schools had a text with the digital education vision, and this text gave instruction to help all the pupils to become lifelong learners. And so we started working on digital competencies before pandemic. During the pandemic, we had a digital competence framework. And here there are, if you can show the slide, if you can go on. Here there are all the framework, digital content creation, safety, problem solving, communication, and information data literacy. And during the pandemic, they always gave instruction to teaching with a policy which supported the learning plans, and they helped the teacher to work on hybrid and distance learning. And this policy is very important because aims to ensure an equal treatment and the well-being of all the pupils. And the digital competence framework is very interesting because it's cross-curricular, and it has an holistic approach, and there are very interesting task ideas. And now we are working, for example, on learning scenario. Each teacher has got to work when he prepares a lesson and to think how he can help students to develop digital competencies during this lesson. So I think that the European schools had a very, very great help from this Council of European Schools in trying to managing the change and this process. But, and if you go to my last, the other one, I think that we learn that the more you push forward, the more the system pushes you back. So we have got to go in a slow way, because an easy way usually brings the problem back inside, and faster is slower. And we have got to stop finger pointing and trying to go on with a smile, because it's very easy to point the finger, but it's useless. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Roberta. I think maybe for all of our speakers, some key points emerge. One is it seems relatively simple to actually identify, implement, manage all of the technology and the technology tools for digitizing education. But what seems to be the most difficult is the process of change management itself, whether it's dealing with your bureaucratic systems, whether it's dealing with the mindset of the instructors. And again, as our last speaker said, sometimes the more you push forward, the more pushback you receive, even though all of us, I think, we're very, very well intentioned in all of our efforts to provide continuity and quality of instruction over the last 3 years. So now I will turn it over to Julian to make any closing comments, and then we can answer your questions.
Right. Okay. I was supposed to be speaking at the end, but thanks for that, Julie. Thank you so much to the 3 speakers for highlighting one very, very important principle, and that is the only constant is change, and we cannot bury our heads in the sand, but we do have to address these issues head on. I guess that the most important issue really is how we approach change and how we manage the change. And I remember why, when we were choosing this particular topic, why we chose this topic was because there were schools and universities around the world which were not prepared for when the pandemic happened, and were not prepared for digitalizing education. And I remember consulting for some universities where the staff were telling me they were feeling suicidal over the changes that they had been forced into. So yeah, thank you very much for these salient comments that you've shared with us today. And I would be delighted to have ideas from everybody about future topics for hot topics webinars that are organized by IVETA. IVETA is the International Vocational Education and Training Association, as you can see from the top of my screen. And if you want to visit the website, it's iveta.global. We are an international association, and we are delighted to be working with the Skillman Alliance for this particular webinar series. So feel free to send in some questions or ask questions now to our esteemed speakers. Thank you.
Does anyone have any questions for our speakers? You can raise your hand or you can type it in the chat box.
I'll start with a question, seeing some people are shy. To the various speakers, I would like to know how you managed to overcome the issue of getting your teachers prepared, I suppose, for digital education. So how did you prepare your teachers for the technology that was to be used, for the systems of teaching that you eventually had? How did you prepare your teachers for that? And how did you change their minds?
So I can probably, I think, the first one picking up the mic. I mentioned briefly during the presentation. So basically was a lot of, first of all, a crash course in the beginning, the first weeks of the pandemic, of how to use, in our case, Microsoft Teams and the basic tools. So that was the major issue. It's like a crash course during a week. Everybody was attending that. But also keeping then a continuous training program of webinars, because as people was using it, they had more doubts, they could share the good and the bad experiences. So these forums and these webinars were opportunities to get the people on board this digitalization. The other thing is that is now common we have an onboard program for new teachers. And on this onboard program, the usage of these digital tools is now a standard topic. So all of them have a small training during the onboard process, also to be familiar with the tools that we are using. But basically, that was so it was crash course and then continuous improvements, continuous training along these last 2 years, and we are keeping it now. Last year, in November, we did also like, we had an event, a digital event that was like a learning innovation summit with all our trainees, all our trainers, teachers. So that where we made like a little bit of the balance of the 2 years of the experience we had with some examples of pedagogical and projects that were developed during this period. And we are planning for this year to make the same thing with a little bit more, reaching more people here in Portugal. So basically it was the topic. So I think in between 2020, 2021, we ran around about 55 training sessions for teachers and around about 14 webinars during those last 2 years.
Reading from the questions in the chat, along the same lines, how can we improve the digital skills of TVET instructors in a developing country such as Nigeria, who may not have all of the technology, the internet speed, some of the things that the speaker
Okay, again, me. Sorry, probably I'm being too fast. Or if I don't know if the other colleagues from the panel want to share, to speak something about it. But I can tell you my opinion. To be honest, and to be very, very honest, I don't have an answer, because nowadays what we can share with you was basically our experience, but probably it's not very similar one of being in Nigeria. So first of all, you need to have, and that's something that in Portugal we fortunately have, is to have an infrastructure, for instance, an internet infrastructure in the country that allows the people to have access to these, if we are speaking about remote training. If we are speaking about, that probably it's even difficult in developing countries. But so I think this is something that should be put aside. And the other thing is, the thing I can probably, and without any, Microsoft is not paying anything to me, so very clear. One of the things that we used was the Microsoft Educator Center. So there are a lot of free for schools, especially it's free for schools. There are a lot of training courses, even for the management of the schools, for the staff and so on, to assist them in how to implement a system of digital education in schools. So it could be a solution that you could have there some insights of how to do it. I'm saying that it's difficult to answer because you have to be probably living the problems and the circumstances of these developing countries. But I think one of the things that you could be doing is, it's like a recommendation to look on this Educator Center from Microsoft. There are a lot of, they have even a strategy, a detailed strategy of how to implement a digital training strategy for schools. So here is the recommendation.
And I might add
to that. Thank you, Jill. Yeah, I'm sorry, I'm Anna Maria speaking. Anna Maria. Yeah, thank you. In addition to what Joe have said, I think that can be helpful. Also activate a change, activate international exchanges between schools, for example, between teachers. Also that using some digital platforms or using the internet and the standard digital tools. Yeah.
Thank you. We have a couple of more questions that I think we'll be able to get to this today. One of them deals with the quality, which of course is a very important topic. How do we ensure the quality of digital instruction? And again, I would invite any of our speakers to answer. We had a lot of changes in a very short time period. How do we ensure quality moving forward? Would anyone like to respond?
I was giving time for the other colleagues, but so first of all, I think it's clear that we need to have a clear strategy. So basically, as I mentioned before, during the pandemic, especially the first months, was a question of keeping the process running, yeah, so that we were not losing the students to be for a long period without any type of classes. But from time to time, after some time, then we had to make sure. First of all, we are a technical school. So one of the things that we did was trying to have the right balance between online classes and practical classes. So if you are studying to be a car mechatronic or car mechanic, there are things that you need to learn by doing. That's there is not an alternative. So we were trying to balance, changing a little bit the sequence of the subjects, but to ensure that the end result, and I'm speaking more and more concrete about the end result, was not affected so much. If we are speaking about, for instance, IT training courses, we had IT training courses running 100% online. And the question is to have the evaluation systems need to be more permanent evaluation systems. So you cannot run a complete training course of 25 hours or 50 hours and just making a test at the end. So you need to get the involvement of the students during the training periods. So either using interrogative methods of pedagogical interrogative methods, so asking the students, more interaction with the students, so even to make sure that they are really on the other side of the line, to be honest, because in some cases, as we already have this example, we ask the people to disconnect the cameras because of the width band. So we have to keep, especially the ones that are black in the screen, to make, I'm not saying any name that I'm seeing now, so to make, but to see, are you there? So what do you think about this topic? So really to have a much more, a different approach. If you are using an expositive method for explaining just the subjects, for sure that you will have a decrease in quality and you'll be losing your students. So it's really adjusting the pedagogical methods to the fact that we are going for the digital world and using the good things of the digital world. So it's, for instance, it's much easier for them to cooperate. And even the students today, they are completely native in cooperation and collaboration in the digital world. So it's using and taking profit of this reality and bringing that to the classroom.
Thank you. Anna Maria or Roberta, any other comments about maintaining quality in the digital learning environment?
I wanted to answer to an old question, how we can help teachers, how we help the teachers. First of all, I think that we tried to guide the teacher. I was only in teams, always in teams with my teachers, and we tried to help the one who were not good users at all. And so we created a digital community and everyone could help the others. And we had a lot of training too. And everyone then shared the best experience. And so I think that we had a good quality of work. The quality of teaching, I don't think that the teaching is better or worse. It's different. We have got to evaluate the process more than the product. And so we have got to observe other items and other aspects of the teaching. For example, in European schools, we have different marks for exams, the products, and the process, how you act in class, how you react, how you cooperate. And this is very, very interesting. And it's what we did in the past 2 years, also in the Italian school. I don't think that we have got to adapt the way things go. I think that we have got to have a different idea of school. COVID was a great opportunity, for example, for Italian school, because we should think that school does not answer to our student needs, does not answer anymore to our student needs. So we have got in our communities to share a different ways of school, because our students are different. They will live in a very different world. They will have works that we cannot imagine. And so we have got to prepare them in a different way. And so I think that we have got to understand the change, and in the school, with the teacher, with the students, with the parents, guide the schools to a different way of working. I was a former teacher of Latin, and so it was difficult also for me. I attended a master degree at Polytechnic of Milano. I worked on digital education, and I tried to understand how to help teachers and how to help students, because also for the management of school, it's very difficult. And so I had to prepare, to think, and then to help my teachers to work in a better way.
Well, thank you. And it looks like we are just about out of time. I see many excellent comments and questions in the chat, and certainly please type in any suggestions for future webinars in the chat as well. So with that, I will bring today's program to a close. I'd like to thank our panel of school leaders for their very excellent presentations. I'd like to thank the Skillman Group for doing all of the behind the scenes work to make this webinar available to you this morning, to thank IVETA for being a partner in this webinar series, to thank Julian because he's great, as we've seen in the comments. And with that, I will let you have a good day, a good afternoon, a good evening, and we'll see you next time. Thank you.
Thank you.
Everybody, please remember to help us with the feedback. So it would really appreciate it if you could either scan that barcode with your phone, the QR code with your phone, or type that address and give us feedback as well as suggestions for future webinars. Thank you very, very much. And thank you, Julie, for moderating.
Bye. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you to everyone. Bye.
Thank you.